Picture this. It's the weekend, you're out of school or off work, and you have no other obligations. You get home, change into some comfortable clothes, maybe get a drink or something to eat, and press play on your favorite game.
Tequila old fashions with a splash of cerveza and a chili garnish.
Duo of Johnny Silverhands coming up.
You start playing and check your phone after a little while. And although you have no new notifications because you have no friends, you notice the time. 3 whole hours have passed since you started playing. You begin to wonder why you didn't notice that so much time has passed. That's what happens when you become fully immersed in something. The Cambridge Dictionary's definition of immersion is to become completely involved in something. Whether that's a book, a movie, a video game, the activity does not matter. Immersion in video games is a state of being so absorbed in the game that the player's attention is shifted from the real world to the game's virtual world. When you become so focused on a certain activity that all you can do is continue that activity with no thought of the outside world, no thought of your problems, your stressors, anything, you have become fully immersed. At least that's how I see it. Over the years, I've spent many nights sitting at my computer, gaming or watching shows, where hours have gone by, and when I finally get up from my chair, it takes a moment for reality to set back in. And even then, when I'm lying in bed trying to fall asleep, all I can think about is that show or game I was playing and reminiscing over it as if it's something that happened years ago. It's a surreal feeling to be so caught up in something that you forget about everything for a moment. School, homework, your shitty 9-to-5 that pays you just enough to make a living. It's a nice break from reality. Now, as the title of this video suggests, I'm going to go step by step on how to properly immerse yourself in a video game. This video is like 70% actual advice and 30% advice I would not take seriously, and you'll see why later. I should also note that these steps are not mandatory. You could close this video right now and probably be fine, but advice is advice, and maybe this will help one of you watching. And one more thing before I start, question of the day. What is your favorite game that you like to become immersed in? Let me know in the comments down below. The first step kind of contradicts my earlier statement, but personally, this is a mandatory step for me, and it's to get rid of any other obligations I may have, whether that's homework or looking after my dogs. Any sort of obligation that might stress me out if I were to put it off. And also, it's not cool to neglect your pets. This usually leads to me not being able to play until later when everyone is asleep, which can sometimes not work out if you have to be up early the following day. If you live with someone like family or a roommate, I try and wait to play at a time where I know I won't be disturbed. Not having a single thing to worry about and not having anything that could disrupt your session is step 1. Step 2 adds on to step 1. It's not mandatory, but I find that playing in absolute pitch black darkness with no other illuminations beside my screen really adds to the immersion. Now, I feel obligated to note that looking at a screen in the dark can cause eye strain due to the large contrast between the screen's brightness and the dark room, which is why I deem this step not mandatory. But let's be honest. How many of you are watching this in your bed on your phone with no other light besides your phone screen? You might be wondering, what about my light up RGB keyboard? This takes me to step 3, which is also not mandatory, and I'm now realizing that most of these steps will not be mandatory. In step 3, you're going to want to get yourself what I like to call immersive peripherals. This is what I mean when I say this video is like 70% serious and 30% not serious. And this step in particular is 50-50. If you have money to spare, by all means, take my advice and get yourself some immersive peripherals, but again, not mandatory. So, what are some good immersive peripherals? Well, I'm glad you asked. I recently picked up a pair of HyperX Cloud 3 wireless headphones. They have some seriously good noise cancellation, a surround sound feature which works a little too well, and not to mention that they are just really comfy. Surround sound is very important to becoming fully immersed. If you're trying to become immersed in a horror game like Outlast, it is of utmost importance that you get yourself some headphones that make it sound like Chris Walker is breathing heavily right on your back. You might want to get a few diapers while you're at it as well. And back to the light up keyboard. If your keyboard emits bright, vibrant colors, you better download your brand software to turn that shit off. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, pick yourself up a nice Alienware 34-inch ultra-wide OLED monitor for the cheap price of $600 before tax.
Incredible.
I personally have the 38-inch version, but unfortunately they are no longer on Amazon to my knowledge. I guess I got the last one. This is a joke, but also not a joke, because having a wider monitor that can take up all of your peripheral vision will increase the immersion tenfold. If you want to go the super extra mile, invest in a VR setup. But whatever you do, do not open up VR chat or you will get groomed.
When this miner met me, they were really touchy. They kept kissing my avatar on the mouth against my will. You're 16, right?
15.
Oh, 15, okay. And this guy's 27, right?
Me.
Whoa, brother, whoa, now.
I myself do not own a VR setup, but I think that's the easiest way to become immersed. I mean, it's quite literally called virtual reality. It's pretty self-explanatory. Step 4 is a little more tame and definitely depends on the game you are playing, but immersive mods can seriously go a long way. I recently started an immersive cyberpunk playthrough that includes roughly about 40 mods that make the game more immersive. Most of the mods I installed add small changes to the game, but the one mod that really stands out is a survival system mod. This mod adds hunger, thirst, and sleep to V's health counter. The lower these 3 bars go, the lower V's health will get. This adds importance to food items, drinks, and sleep, and encourages the player to visit vendors all around Night City. Another mod is the Wannabe Edge Runner mod, which encourages players to visit V's apartment more often and interact with everything inside. The reason being is that the Wannabe Edge Runner mod adds a humanity bar to the game. The lower it gets, the closer you are to becoming a cyber psycho. Simply interacting with everyday items like the shower can restore some of that humanity. These small details may not mean much to the average player, but for someone who is looking for a more realistic and tough experience, these 2 mods are definitely a must-have. And it's not just Cyberpunk. Skyrim has a survival system mod, and many games in general just have a survival system where monitoring hunger, thirst, and sleep actually means something. But back to modding in general, obviously this depends on the game and your choice of console. Some games simply don't have mod support, and I don't think Xbox or PlayStation does either, but I could be wrong. But if you are playing a game that has mod support, look into some immersive mods if you want that kind of experience. If you don't know where to start, search up immersive mods for X game on YouTube and you should be good. Although, a lot of games don't require mods and can be very immersion friendly by themselves. And that brings us to step 5. In step 5, I want to talk about some games I've played that really got me immersed. Now before someone states the obvious and says that all games can be immersive, I know, but some games do immersion a lot better than others. If I were to play Papa's Pizzeria and then play Outlast after, chances are I'm gonna have a better time being immersed in Outlast. No hate on Papa's Pizzeria though. That whole series is goated. Now I've talked a lot about what immersion in video games looks like and steps you can take to become immersed, but you might be wondering, what actually makes a game immersive? Well, I'm glad you asked. A game with a long, fleshed out story that evokes emotion and keeps the player engaged is great. Red Dead Redemption, Detroit Become Human, The Last of Us, all good examples. Games that have a lot of interactivity can also boost the level of immersion. Red Dead Redemption 2 is again a good example of this. Small things like being able to get a haircut, play poker at the saloon, get drunk, rent a room at a hotel for a night and take a bath, things like that don't directly contribute to the story, but make the game feel more lively. Now I could go on and on about several aspects that make a game immersive, but I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is give you guys 5 games I think do immersion pretty well. Detroit Become Human features a great story with choices that matter and includes a lot of interactivity in each chapter. From doing mundane tasks to fighting your way through a police barricade, Detroit Become Human offers a deep and versatile experience that will leave the player shocked with the various different outcomes the game has and wanting you to come back for more. Although the story is pretty short, with a completion time of about 10 hours, there is a lot you can do with this game. Its major selling point is the fact that there are multiple different ways you can go about completing a chapter, which can completely change the entire story of the game. I think the one thing this game did perfectly to add to the immersion is the fact that if you mess up, the story continues and you have to live with your mistake. I'm in the middle of my second playthrough right now, and I messed up by not hiding any evidence of androids when the police officer was searching the house Kara was in, and that led to Luther being shot and killed. And although I wanted that to happen since I got the best ending for all 3 of them in my first playthrough, it's crazy to think that unlike most games that would just have you reset at a checkpoint, the game continues on and the story unfolds without a once important character.
You're going to have to finish the journey without me.
Cyberpunk 2077 is my second favorite game of all time. I just started my 3rd playthrough of this game, and as previously mentioned, it is an immersive playthrough. Mods aside, Cyberpunk is one of the most immersive games I've ever played. I think the main reason it's so immersive is because it transports you to a reality very similar to ours. A reality riddled with corporate corruption and a consumer society. Cyberpunk did a phenomenal job emulating what the future of first world countries could look like. World building aside, Cyberpunk's been around long enough for most of you guys to know how good the main quest is. This is definitely a game I'd recommend if you want something more immersive. Skyrim is my favorite game of all time, and I say that in about every video I make. Someone commented saying that Skyrim is kind of an unk pick, and I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know if it's nostalgia or bias, but I believe Skyrim is one of the best games to get immersed in. Skyrim really lets you roleplay, while a lot of other quote-unquote roleplay games force you to choose a role. Skyrim is a whole nother world where you can be as big or as small as you want. You have the freedom to do quite literally anything. You're never locked in a quest, no characters are waiting for you to come and talk to them. It feels alive, and every time I load up Skyrim and one of the soundtracks start playing, I am instantly transported into their world, and I go from Vesper to the Dragonborn. Now, Doom Eternal offers a different type of immersion compared to these other games, in the sense that it's just a pure adrenaline rush. It's no surprise that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a very immersive game. With a lengthy and engrossing story, a vast open world map, and very, very realistic mechanics, this is easily one of the most immersive games you can play. And those are my top picks for immersive video games. If you guys have different games in mind, I'd love to hear them. That's about all I have to say for this video. Although I wouldn't recommend taking some of this advice seriously, like spending money on immersive peripherals, I hope that someone out there watching can use this video to better immerse themselves in whatever it is that they please. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.